Up next, from the United States Air Force Academy, Neumimic.
All right, good evening. I'm Will Burnett. This is Aaron Spohr, and our product is Neumimic. We're seniors at the United States Air Force Academy. Last fall, I found myself in a boxing match, and I'm coming at the guy. I'm getting in there, I give him a quick couple jabs and a left hook, and my shoulder pops out. And from then on, I was having shoulder problems, and so I had to have surgery in February of this year. And of course, with shoulder surgery comes physical therapy. So after my first day of physical therapy, they sent me home with a sheet full of exercises for me to do, one of which was abduction in the scapular plane. Can any of you tell me what abduction in the scapular plane is? Anybody out there? Nobody? Yeah, I didn't know what it was either. So needless to say, doing physical therapy at home can be complicated. I don't know if I'm doing the right stuff. I wonder if I'm hurting my shoulder worse. And frankly, it's just boring. And these problems don't just stop with me as the patient. For a therapist, I've noticed this over the last few months of going to therapy. They're always working with 2 or 3 or more patients at a time. They're spread very thin, which impedes their ability to focus on any one patient. So bottom line, the current way of doing physical therapy is archaic, and this industry is screaming for something new.
I think we can all agree that the world is changing, especially in the last decade. The advances in technology have been significant and have pushed change across the whole business spectrum. But as Will said, we see this being especially the case in physical therapy, although physical therapy is very much behind the curve. This is the solution. Neumimic is a revolutionary physical therapy program which uses Microsoft Kinect motion sensor technology in conjunction with an optional brace in order to provide an interactive experience for physical therapy patients. For those of you who don't know, Microsoft Kinect is like Nintendo Wii, except your whole body is the game controller. A patient like Will here would go to his physical therapist, and his therapist would walk him through exercises in front of the motion sensor, and it would pick up on nodes on Will's body in order to program a customized exercise for each individual patient. Will, in order to actually do his exercise, would log into the system and actually follow the interactive skeleton as you can see on the screens here. He would line his body up with it, and it would walk him through the exercises. Very simple and easy to use. After he's done with his exercises, it would send a progress report to his physical therapist's computer, tablet, or even mobile device over a HIPAA-approved secure network.
So the physical therapy industry is huge. In fact, it's $60 billion huge. And as you know, technology is advancing, doctors are getting better at surgery, and surgery is becoming more of a viable option. I'm sure everyone in here knows at least one person who's had to have surgery and therefore physical therapy. For that reason, it's growing at a rate of 6.1% per year. We want to get our foot in the door in this market, and we're going to do so through 3 specific areas. They are strokes, traumatic brain injuries, and upper body limb rehabilitation like myself. Now, the reason we're targeting these 3 areas is because all 3 require that the patient do hundreds of repetitions of the exact same exercise correctly. That's how you get your range of motion back, that's how you get your strength back, that's how you heal. Through these 3 areas, we can reach about 6.7 million patients, and as we progress Neumimic software, we plan to hit the entire physical therapy industry.
Neumimic is a software as a service business model. We'll provide complete packages with hardware and software to physical therapy clinics who will then make them available to their patients. The bulk of our revenue will come from a subscription cost per patient per month, and we're sitting at about $15 per patient right now. Our competitors, as you can see, we have several viable competitors. However, unlike them, Neumimic's software allows for specific measurements to be taken with every single repetition. This is important for physical therapists to know exactly where their patients are at in terms of rehabilitation at any time, as well as collecting data on the cloud network that they can use later on. On top of this, Neumimic is the only company in the market right now who has a brace that will be used in conjunction with the motion sensor technology. So as we talked about before, this exercise that Will is doing now, a lot of the physical therapists will have to hold onto the shoulder of the patient like this and basically stand with the patient the entire time that they're doing their exercises to stop them from shrugging like this.
Or at least be there to watch them as they're doing it.
And so with our device, it'll keep that from happening, and so the physical therapist can be completely hands-free and take on more patients at once. All of this at a fraction of the cost of our competitors. If I'm Will's physical therapist, I love Neumimic. It keeps my patients accountable to doing their at-home exercises thoroughly and also exactly right. Every single time, every rep, doing the repetition correctly. It's hands-off, like I mentioned before, so it allows for less physical therapists to have more physical therapy patients, which boosts the bottom line in the clinic. It allows for off-scene instruction, so at any time, I can monitor how all of my patients are doing, and I can even change the exercises that I desire for them to do. And lastly, as I mentioned before, data collection is huge, especially within the healthcare industry, and we'll be gaining a large amount of extremely valuable information as time goes on and more people use our system.
As the patient, I also love Neumimic. To begin, it turns physical therapy into an engaging, interactive experience. It takes something I used to be bored with and turns it into something I want to get done. Second, it provides accurate, real-time feedback to my therapist. Every rep that I do, they get to see, they know if I'm progressing or doing worse, and when I come into the clinic the next time, they know exactly where I'm at and what they need to do with me. Third, it improves my recovery time, and as someone who's been doing therapy for about 3 months now, I can tell you this is huge. I can't wait to be able to work out again, so maybe I can look like those CNS guys if they're still in here. Anyway, it's also very easy to use. You don't have to be any sort of technological whiz to plug in Neumimic and get your physical therapy done. In terms of intellectual property, on our development team, there's a patent lawyer who we've turned in all of our drawings and our work to, who will help us have a patent pending within the next 2 months. Our development team is made up of seniors at the United States Air Force Academy, ranging from business managers to systems engineers, computer engineers, as well as mechanical engineers. All the development and design of Neumimic, from the brace to the software, has all come from cadets. That being said, we do have a team of professional advisors from our faculty that also help us see it along.
So where do we stand right now? We have a working prototype which is actually being used in Penrose St. Francis Medical Center down in Colorado Springs. It's also being used in 6 privately owned clinics, and it's even being used at the Air Force Academy in the Cadet Clinic. So a lot of people are using it right now, but we're not receiving revenue from them. The purpose for this is so that they can use it and give us feedback. We've had several iterations of our product going to the patients, getting feedback from them, making our product better. So that's what we've been doing these last several months. But now we're at a point where we're looking to push this thing forward onto the market. In order to get there, we expect to need $300,000. That's going to cover business expenses such as legal fees and paying for the salaries of the employees that we want to take on, etc. In terms of profit and loss, we expect to be making a profit after 6 months, and we expect to be breaking even after 13 months. We expect our biggest expense to be the salaries of the sales team. The reason for this is because we think we're going to need a significant sales team in order to push this to a relatively fragmented market that is physical therapy. So in order to push this and get it out into the market, which is fragmented, we're going to have a large sales team. In terms of our history of development, it actually started in the mind of Dr. Glenn House, who leads physical therapy at Penrose St. Francis Medical Center. He recognized a need in the market, and he came to FalconWorks, which is a nonprofit organization that works with the academy to encourage entrepreneurship throughout the cadet wing. They came to the cadets and said, do you think that you can make a product that could fill this need? The last 2.5 years, as Will said, cadets have been working hard in order to develop a product that would fill that need, and we have. And we've seen from the responses from our patients as well as the physical therapists that after people use it and see it, they love it, and it works so well. So that's something that we're extremely excited about, obviously, after so much work, to be able to get that feedback from everybody who's been using it. As I talked about before, our leading advisor is Dr. Glenn House, who is the medical director at Penrose St. Francis Rehabilitation Center. A couple other notable members of our advisory board is Dr. Roger Nealon, who is recently the Chief Technology Officer for the Colorado Springs Technology Incubator. He actually leads FalconWorks right now and really does pushes for projects like these. And then also, as we mentioned before, we have a patent lawyer on our team, Dr. Tim Worrell, who's helping us acquire intellectual property for our product. And so, lastly, in conclusion, the reason why we're here is in order to first promote Neumimic, but also start chipping away at the $300,000 that we need. While we are supported by the Academy and FalconWorks, it's just out of their scope to provide $300,000 to a project like this. So we're here to talk to all of you in order to get funding.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
We have another member that's going to join us for questions. This is our engineering expert, Cadet First Class.
The brains.
Good job, guys. Very nicely done.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Very intriguing. A couple things, maybe you said it and I missed it, but just a couple things on the business model. So the system is, the system resides at a physical therapy center.
Yes, sir.
Not at a home, not at an individual's home.
Okay, so there's kind of two parts to Neumimic. One can be used within the physical therapy clinic, and it'll be like a kiosk. Okay, so you'd come up, and different patients could use different kiosks within the physical therapy clinic. There's also another part that can be used at home. This fills a need that we've heard from physical therapists. They're all very frustrated because sometimes, or oftentimes, their patients don't do their at-home exercises, so they don't get better as quickly as they expect them to. This is also important because if you have two patients, same injury, doing the same things, but one of them isn't doing their at-home exercises, you can't really have significant evidence or data to support that one exercise works better than the other, right? So over time, you can see, like, with this surgery or this injury, this specific exercise works the best. And that's what we hope to move towards as Neumimic goes on.
To expand upon that, at home, when there's not a therapist there watching, the thing they're telling me in the clinic all the time is stop shrugging, you're compensating. Neumimic and our brace, as well as the Connect system that's watching you, helps making sure you're doing it correct. So, and that's very important when rebuilding the shoulders.
Okay, so let's just say the home. What is the dollar amount of the hardware and software that's sitting at the home?
Okay.
How much, what's that sort of capital investment?
So the software, or are you talking about what we have to pay in order to obtain it?
I'm saying I'm a customer and I'm at home, and
Okay.
I'm going to have the devices and everything. What is just the value of setting up the equipment in my house?
So what we expect is for physical therapy clinics to rent out our product so that, because a lot of people don't want a Microsoft Connect for anything other than physical therapy, and so they'll use it for a period of time and then bring it back, so it'll be assigned to them. So depending on the clinic, it's going to cost more or less what we assume. That's why we're going to sell it to the clinic, and they'll provide it to the patients.
I got it.
Okay.
The patient, $15 a month, paid by the patient or an insurance company?
Yeah,
Well,
what's
who's the-
reimbursement
Yeah,
all
that-
about here?
So we definitely recognize that insurance plays a big role in anything medical. And right now we're in the first generation phase for the brace, and I mean, we just rolled out the prototype months ago for the product. So basically, we're just seeing that there is a need for it, and we recognize that insurance is going to be something that plays a role, but it just hasn't yet. So that's something that we expect to move towards once we...
Don't you expect that the physical therapist, if there's not reimbursement, is going to be unlikely to adopt the technology?
Well, as Aaron stated, this is going to raise the bottom line. Having the Neumimic in the clinic makes it so that one physical therapist doesn't have to work with as many patients at one time. And we have found that in the physical therapy industry, the salary of therapists is the most expensive cost they have.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're providing scalability within the physical therapy.
Exactly. Yes, sir. That's the reason it's attractive to the physical
thing that was
therapist.
really interesting for me was when talking to physical therapists, they really do desire for their patients to get better. So money is one side, certainly, I understand that. But also there's this intrinsic desire with all physical therapists that we talk to is like, I really do want these guys to get better. And so that is part of it. Like, it really does create value in their minds to know, like, these guys will be getting better quicker, and they won't have to worry about trying to figure out this paper thing. So it also creates value in
So
that way.
Neumimic helps both sides of that, financially and that emotional side.
Yeah, and also in terms of the whole idea of Neumimic, it also helps both the therapist and the patients in terms of putting a quantifiable measure in the progress of the patient. That hasn't really been achieved before. It's usually very subjective on how well they're progressing on their recovery.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get better outcomes, better measurable outcomes, and or you can reduce the cost of providing it, there's presumably real value there to the therapy center.
Yes, sir.
I get that. I like the yes, sir. By the way, I'm just not used to that, so I kind of like that, okay? You guys get a check for the yes, sir.
All right.
You had a lot of competitors up there, and I've taken a look at some technology like this in the past. Actually, in Denver, a serial entrepreneur named Tom Simmons, I don't know if you've ever bumped into him, or I'm not sure if he represents one of those anymore. I don't know what he called the company. Why are you different than all your other competitors?
Well, our competitors usually approach this problem through the method of using games. So the patients can't really see themselves in the specific exercise that they're doing. Our approach is a little different in that the patient can get immediate feedback by seeing their mirror image displayed on the TV or their computer screen. And then they can see what they're supposed to be doing or what they're not doing right by the joints being highlighted by whenever they're out of place.
Yep. It was identical to what I saw Tom produce probably about 2 or 3 years ago.
So another thing about that is that, well, the brace, which we mentioned before, I know is one thing. As a physical therapist, if you imagine, like, you can have people doing their at-home exercises, but if it isn't precise and if they're not doing it right, then it's hardly useful for them to even be doing it. And so our brace ensures them, and they know in their mind, yes, when I send this person home, they're going to be doing these exercises correctly, and I'm going to know that they are because I'm getting a progress report, immediate feedback.
So do you have the algorithms in the software, though, to show when someone's not doing it right? So for instance, if I'm going like this and I'm shrugging, is the software reflecting it back to me saying, oh, it's red, until I'm green again because I'm not shrugging.
So if you recall the skeleton you saw, it works on nodes, like my elbow, my shoulder,
Yeah.
there's a spinal cord. So if I'm compensating by doing this, my spinal cord's gonna be off,
Yeah.
and that'll be red. When I'm standing like this, all these nodes will be back into place, and it'll be where it needs to be.
Yeah,
Not to
I mean,
mention-
I've seen the software actually written. I'm just seeing if yours actually does that. I mean, yes, sir.
Keon, you want to talk to that a little bit?
So how our software works is the therapist goes ahead and records a full motion,
Yep.
assisting the patient. And then in the patient mode, the patient tries to follow that recording. The display or their figure is overlaid by the figure of the recorded exercise. And then if they're out of position, not only does it highlight it, but it also stops. The repetition stops completely. And then it gives you 5 seconds to get back into the recorded motion, and then before continuing, or else it just completely stops and then moves on to the next repetition. And then your improvement is measured by the percent completion, how much you completed of the full motion of exercise.
thanks.
Have you been able to do any tests on whether people are more or less likely to do their exercises at home with the equipment?
We haven't gotten any quantifiable data, but the information that we've got from the patients seems to be pointing in that direction. Like, man, I love doing it this way much more than doing the paper. But one huge thing about that is knowing that your physical therapist is going to know that you don't do your exercises is really going to push people towards doing them. You imagine walking in as a patient and your therapist being like, come on, man, why aren't you doing your exercise? You don't want to get better? Why are you even coming here? Right. You know? Yep. So we expect that to really push people even more so than the fun experience.
Although that's your personality, there are a lot of personalities out there, people that just won't go back to the therapist.
Yes, sir.
Either way, there's feedback there.
They're not within our target market, I don't think.
What are your use of proceeds? Where's the $300,000 going?
So as I mentioned before, that's going to be going back towards pushing Neumimic forward. We're actually, even though all of the development and everything over the last 2.5 years has been completely cadets, we're looking now that it's ready for the market to license it out to someone in the community so that it can benefit our community and they can work together with FalconWorks, our board of advisors, our faculty members who are more permanent parts of this program. Does that answer your question?
No, but are you hiring salespeople?
Yes, sir.
$200,000 for salaries? Is there how much for engineering? Do you need to buy hardware? Do you need to lease an office?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So it's going to go towards all that, and that's kind of in the scope of the first 5 months. So software development, legal fees, salaries of people who we're going to pull on once we get this thing in the market.
And do you think you'll need to require to raise more money?
Perhaps eventually, but keep in mind that since all of the development up to this point has been a capstone project, there's legitimately been close to $0 put in. And all of the work and development that other companies have to be doing for 2 years, all the infrastructure required, we've been doing it in order to grow in leadership.
So who owns the entity? Is there an actual,
There's an agreement between the United States Air Force Academy and Falcon Works right now, and so the ownership resides with them.
some sort of joint venture? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good job.